మా ఛానల్ని సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేయండి, లైక్ చేయండి, షేర్ చేయండి.
Unpaid Seller Sale of Goods Act, 1930 Section 45. At the outset, it is very important to understand the meaning of an unpaid seller. In simple terms, an unpaid seller is a person who has sold the goods but hasn't received the full amount in exchange for the sale. The legal definition of unpaid seller has been provided under Section 45 of the Sale. Rights of unpaid seller. The rights of an unpaid seller can be divided into two parts, namely 1. Right against buyer. 2. Right against goods. Rights of unpaid seller. Right against buyer. Rights of unpaid seller against the buyer. 1. Suit to recover the price. 2. Suit for recovering the damages. 3. Right of unpaid seller to receive the interest. 4. Contract before the due date. Right against buyer. 1. Suit to recover the price. If the goods are sold to the buyer and the buyer is wrongfully neglecting or refusing to pay as per the terms and conditions agreed between the parties in the contract, the unpaid seller has a right to sue such buyer as per Section 55(1) of the Sale of Goods Act. It is important to note that when the goods are delivered or property is passed, the buyer is bound to pay the price for the same. It should be kept in mind that the party has the capacity to contract as per Section 11 of the Indian Contract Act. Right against buyer. 2. Suit for recovering the damages. When the buyer wrongfully refuses to accept the goods or the payment of money, the seller has a right to sue as per Section 56 of the Act for receiving damages for non-acceptance of the goods. The quantum of damage is calculated as per Section 73 and 74 of the Indian Contract Act, 1872. Right against buyer. 3. Right of unpaid seller to receive the interest. This is provided under 61 of the Sales of Goods Act. This section states that if there is a contract between buyer and seller regarding the payment of interest from the date the payment becomes due, the seller is legally entitled to receive the same. But, even in the absence of such agreement, the seller may charge interest from the day he notifies the buyer regarding the payment of money. Right against buyer. 4. Contract before the due date. As per Section 60 of the Sale of Goods Act, when the buyer repudiated or is terminated before the completion of the contract, the seller can consider the agreement terminated and will be entitled to receive anticipatory damage from the buyer. Rights of unpaid seller. Right against goods. Rights of unpaid seller against the goods. 1. Right of lien. 2. Termination of right to lien by the unpaid seller. 3. Right of stoppage by the unpaid seller. Right against goods. Rights of unpaid seller against the goods. 1. Right of lien. In simple terms, the right of lien refers to a right that a seller of goods can exercise when the price of goods is not paid by the seller. The right of lien is also used in the contract of bailment. Right to lien enables the seller to retain the possession of the goods as an agent. The condition for retention of goods has been provided under Section 47 of the Sale of Goods Act. Right against goods. 2. Termination of right to lien by the unpaid seller. The termination of a lien occurs when the goods don't remain in the possession of the seller. Section 49 of the Act enumerates certain conditions in which this right of lien is terminated. When the seller voluntarily relinquished the right to lien. Right against goods. 3. Right of stoppage by the unpaid seller. Section 50 of the Sale of Goods Act enumerates 4 essential requirements for stopping the goods in transit. These conditions are as follows. There must be an unpaid seller. The buyer must be insolvent. The goods should have been passed to the buyer. The goods should be in the course of transit.